as you can see, I have two highly skilled people with me today, but we are the smallest panel also. So I also would like to challenge you as the listeners to participate. Because what we are going to discuss today, I don't think we'll answer it right now, but that is what is the best practice for achieving maturity in cybersecurity. And when we talk about that, then we talk about the definition of maturity. And when we talk about definitions, then people often tend to disagree. So I'm also quite curious to listen about your people's version of maturity, if that is lack of incidents, if that is sort of a certificate, or how we can define it. But first of all, you had a good introduction from Ribe. I think I'll start with you, Morten, representing the Risk Insurance. And there is a difference between you two. You are talking to very many ship owners today, and you have been for a ship owner in Ugland for 25 years. So we have two quite fascinating perspectives, actually. But in talking to the different ship owners, Morten, how mature is shipping today, considering cybersecurity?
Oh, great question. About this much? I think that's a very, very hard question to answer, but in respect to the global fleet, I would say that DNK members, being the Norwegian ship owners, are quite mature. And I think that goes for most of our approaches when it comes to risk. For me, the maturity is very much based on how you approach risk, and that the Norwegian ship owners are famous for being good at. So congrats to all of you here in the room that are Norwegian ship owners, and the one next to me. And from a maturity perspective, what we really look for, as mentioned, is the approach to risk. So it's about firstly understanding your own risk. That means not only business continuity plans, but also understanding that there is something beyond the lack of availability. When we come to cybersecurity, people often speak of encryptions and systems not being available, but we also very much look for those that understand that confidentiality and integrity are as important, if not more, though not often as much focus or light shed on it. So what we look for in our ship owners is the approach to risk, how they evaluate it, and also how they mitigate it. And that is a continuous approach where we have to work together as well. We all want the Norwegian ship owners to work with the risk, but of course, as an insurer, we also believe that it's a tandem relationship. There are some risks that you can mitigate and some risks that you can't. And that's what you have insurance for. That's a long answer for you, but hope it was a good one.
It's very good, and it's spot on the sort of foundation of continuous improvement, because it's always a question if we can reach our cyber-secure state. That is something which we need to consider, every one of us. But over to you, Halvor, being a player in the market for so many years. Just this is a question out of the blue, really. But what are your interpretations of the shipping's maturity, if you look at it from a broader perspective of both yourself, of course, you shared yourself with the presentation, and that is a very good sign, but also of shipping itself. Do you have any thoughts and perspectives on that?
It's difficult to say. I think, as Morten said, generally, I think that companies have fairly good maturity within cybersecurity, and I think it's important to see that it's an evolving picture. So, what is maturity? Tomorrow there would be new demands, but still, I think most companies have a fairly good maturity, and of course also learn by near incidents, as we have, and I talked to other companies, been involved in other company where they had also some experiences. Generally, Norwegians are known to be a little bit naive, and So there was one case where I said we're not afraid to ask questions, but we had I would actually still have a system for handling invoices electronically, and then in the contract we said we could choose to have the data stored in Norway, or it was open where it was stored, and we said yes, Norway, and they sort of asked why, and I think at the time that it was Ukraine, which before the war, but still Ukraine didn't really have a very good reputation for cybersecurity. So I think they were dealing with many small Norwegian companies, and so going back 9-10 years, I think the maturity was less, but I think it has improved greatly.
Yeah, that's good. So we're on a good path there. That's good. But over to the audience, or eventually over to you, Carl. Considering what is cybersecurity maturity for you? What is important for you, both as vendors but also as shipowners? Do we have anybody in the hall?
Provocative question, isn't it?
Yeah, you can, please, folks.
So on the invoice fraud, I mean, it strikes me that it's virtually impossible. So it's the nature of shipping, you're dealing with suppliers in ports you've never been to before, surveyors that can say, I'm not going to release your ship until I'm paid, and how on earth system can you have to verify the bank details of a surveyor in Panama is correct, plus you've got these server farms in Myanmar using advanced AI, slave Chinese people trying to hack into them all the time. You can't possibly keep up with the challenge. It's a provocative question.
I agree. It's difficult. As we agree, nothing is certain. So of course, we don't have a guarantee. But we have done. I think that's what you do in many companies. That we know when we have paid a bank account previously, because that's in our system. So then we feel relaxed. But it's when it's a new bank account, and actually most payments go to the existing bank account as an existing vendor, or so that reduces the situations where we have to use these callback routines. And actually, we have a routine that we also involve a second call it medium of communication, so that two means of communication. But that's for the big payments. But it's something we can probably not be absolutely sure about, but we try to be as sure as possible.
I would very much echo that, Halvor, and I think also to answer your question, maybe it's not about making it impossible. What we generally see from threat actors, with the good help of NORMA cyber, of course, is that, to be honest, they are quite lazy. They are just like us. They want to do their job as efficiently as possible. So if they can take someone who's a little bit less cyber secure or mature than you are, then they would rather take them. Meaning you don't have to be the best in the world at cybersecurity. Don't even have to be top 10, but you have to be better than the average, ideally. Because those are the ones that they go for. Just like a school of fish, the slowest swimmer is the one that gets eaten by the shark. So we're not trying to tell all of you that you have to be the fastest swimmers, but keep up. As long as you keep up, you've done a lot of good work. And from there on, yes, there is still residual risk, but you have at least mitigated a lot of the risk.
Yes, and also building further on that, considering sort of, we can call it the laziness of the hackers. They want to take the way of least resistance. Then, of course, we have AI as a gift package, considering effectiveness of attacks and the attack vector. But that's not what we're going to dwell into. I want to ask you again, Morten, because we know that cybersecurity is a cost for everybody. It is something which we just need to implement in our budget, and it is a market between shipowners and also a market between vendors. But what do you see as the measures which shipowners and vendors can take, which doesn't blow the budget? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, that certainly is $1 million question. I think the one thing that is more important than more expensive than cybersecurity is a cyber incident. So with that in mind, I would still argue that one can give a solid budget to people like Halvor. But it is a constant ongoing battle between top management and cybersecurity people of how much should we spend on cybersecurity. And we hope to at least help a little bit on that side. As insurer, what we often contribute with is a risk evaluation. And from our perspective, that gives a third-party risk evaluation for the insurers, which is great. And then also if they want to implement some new security measures, then you can offset that against some premium as our risk reduces as well. And this further helps Halvor's arguments when he comes to his top management. But each company is individual, so unfortunately I can't give you a simple answer there.
Oh, that's all right, thank you. And also you, Halvor, have talked about it in your presentation, so I won't dwell any more on that. But what I find very interesting in cybersecurity in the shipping industry especially is that when you have a responsibility or a job, then cybersecurity is another hat on your head on top of all the other jobs. And it fascinated me that you are both a CFO and also have the overall responsibility for the ICT in the company. And so I just wondered if you could elaborate a bit on that and also how the roles benefits each other. Yeah.
Yeah, so I have to admit that I spend more time on finance than I spend on ICT, since my background is economist. But actually I also had in my studies some exposure to ICT and in my first job also some exposure to ICT, so I think that has been part of it. But my role is to be part of the, call it, ICT strategy, and particularly ICT budgets, and also linking the ICT budgets to the total budget of the company and strategy. So when it comes to what should we choose, for instance, how much should we do on-premises computing, how much should we move into the sky, that I leave to the technical experts. So, so it's not into the details role I have, but an overall role, and also have an overall responsibility for insurance, so then sort of can link these three together.
Thank you very much, and that's also it's very fascinating to see how we can link cybersecurity and finance together. But what we also talked about today in the previous discussions, that is something which goes again in all conferences. That's towards collaboration and breaking down the silos. Have been mentioned very many times, and we know that culture is key for maturity, and that's whether it's cybersecurity maturity, it's on any other maturity. But I just, you elaborated a bit on it in your presentation. I just wondered if you had any thoughts, or maybe you must also have some comments on how welfare affects cybersecurity posture on board. Because, well, we see, well, by enabling seafarers, we can also do some positive things.
Yeah, I think I already mentioned it, but it's very important to have internet as a welfare factor on board. So both, of course, for the welfare, which is the key thing, but we see that sort of water have a tendency of flowing down, and so if the welfare for internet is not very good, then suddenly there is a case of short-circuiting the ship system. We've even seen memory sticks being put into the ship system because people want to copy some of their private stuff, and of course that's a big cyber security threat. So we try to help eliminate that problem by improving and all along at least having better access than what is standard, and of course the standard has developed greatly after Starlink arrived.
Yeah, 100% correct. I think for us from the insurance point of view, that is one of the elements that we put the most risk into, the people. As we see a lot of incidents, they typically come from people making mistakes, unfortunately. And when you spend time with your people working on cybersecurity, cyber maturity, and general understanding, that really contributes to the loss ratios that we see. So, of course, what we want to see there is people doing like Halvor, running the annual National Cybersecurity Month of October, or running the NORMA courses with both offshore employees but also onshore employees. They are just as important as the people on board.
Thank you so long. I also want to continue to, okay, we have a question there in the audience. Yes, finally a question.
Elizabeth Halvor, Introducing Wind Carrier. Question to insurance.
Absolutely.
The ISO standards, they appoint all the, let's call it network buildup. I applaud the redundancy. Actually, when you do a network buildup, you shouldn't only think security, you should also think earning money. So you should evaluate what you earn money on, and I'm sure you'll earn money on having an available network at all times. It's not only the risk, it's also the income that should be considered. You did mention welfare. The ISO standards in general, they do not address remote service. So remote service, you bypass everything and you want someone external to do changes to your system, either in the OT system or in the IT system. So it's a benefit having the remote service, but there are also people, and that's a non-firewall connection to inner controls of the vessel. How do insurance see that?
Mic. Great question. And to answer that, it's very important for us to understand what is in the scope of your cybersecurity measures, which is also echoing the question that I asked Halvor earlier about what was in the scope of his ISO 27001 certification. And as you say, the external services are often not in scope. I've never seen them in scope actually, but we typically don't say never. So we're very pro, generally, having external services. We see that many of the service providers, they do work on their cybersecurity measures, as they know that's part of their general bidding as well. But we do assess every one of them. So for our insurers, we monitor their most key suppliers. That's often related to vessels and OT, but also suppliers that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with IT. But you are dependent upon them. So if something were to happen, that would impact them. And in cyber, that's our worst nightmare, when we start to see systemic risks. So to answer your questions, it very much depends on what type of vendor it is and what could happen. Each and every risk, of course, we do an evaluation, not only of the probability of something happening, but also what's the impact. If you have redundant systems, or if you have only one vessel being impacted, then of course it wouldn't be as critical as if your entire fleet depended on this one system and that was out of scope for your security measures. You look like you're wanting for some more. Can I?
It's fine.
Yeah?
You have to consider it.
Correct. You have to consider it. We assess all the most key third-party vendors.
I've got a provocative question.
Okay.
This was actually made by one of our speakers in the Bergen event, so you'll forgive me in advance. He said to me, all the insurance companies keep asking me to use these ISO standards, but if you follow all the standards, you'll be completely safe. So in my view, it's a waste of money. Is that right?
I would say that not to speak ill of any insurance companies out there, but for many doing cyber is quite new. And for them it's difficult to assess cyber risk, especially when you try to do many different laterals at the same time. In DNK we only do maritime companies, we only do ship owners, meaning for us it's a lot easier to assess the risk and also to better apply the cybersecurity measures. So for us, out of all of our insurers, I think we have one that is ISO 27001 certified over the entire organization in scope. Multiple that have certified different parts of their organization, and that's fine. But for us, that's not what necessarily drives the premium. As we see, there are still elements outside of the ISO 27001 that we deem important, and a lot of elements in scope that are not necessarily as risk driving for us. So for me, generally, we would never go out and say that you should get a certification, but having one is a great thing.
All right, no further questions in the audience.
I have a question.
You have a question?
Agnes from Norwegian Yacht Voyages Holdings. You mentioned NIS2. The Norwegian government has decided to go and use version 1, NIS 1. But when it comes to OT security awareness, is that an IT or is it the operational department that handles that?
We try to make it operational and technical department. So they are responsible for the OT systems, at least for choosing OT system and for interacting with machinery and support systems. But of course they ask the ICT department also for advice and to help them. But in principle it's the technical department who has responsibility for OT.
All right, and I still won't let you off the hook, Morten, really, because I know you're talking to a lot of ship owners, and I'm really curious about the most common measures taken in the industry, because Halvor has always elaborated on his. We talked about what they can do without blowing the budget, but if you just see on what are the common things to do among ship owners today, what is the red thread among those doing good?
Well, that's a great question. If you want to hear more about that particular thing, then you can attend the NORMA conference, which is it's just next week already. Yeah, we'll talk more about some statistics and learnings from our years as insurer. But what we generally see is that most of cybersecurity in the shipping companies is quite heavily vessel focused, which is completely understandable, because you are vessel owners and all you do is vessel focused. What we, however, often see is that the threat is not necessarily very vessel focused. That doesn't mean you shouldn't focus on your vessels, that's very good too, but what we see onshore, the measures taken there are typically cheaper and they mitigate risk easier. And there are a lot of typical measures that everyone puts in place that we appreciate. Typical MFA and the firewalls and the trainings. And what we generally see from those that come out with the highest maturity scores is that they start with the risk instead of starting with the measures. So instead of looking at, we need to do this, this, and this, they start assessing, this is my risk. What do I need to mitigate this? And sometimes it might not even be IT stuff. It might not be cybersecurity things. It could simply be moving some functions other places. And that also depends a lot on which frameworks you use. So in shipping, a lot of us, we tend to ISO 27001, NIS2, whilst we see some of the bigger companies, they have put in scope other frameworks that are more risk-driven. They often also turn out to use their budgets more efficiently. I won't comment on specific frameworks.
All right, it looks like we have used the time scheduled in the program, and I just want to provide a quick summary, really. We can start with you, Halvor, on the main topic for this panel discussion. What do you, in quite a narrow way, mean that is best practice for achieving maturity in cybersecurity?
We have covered a lot of it, but I think going back to training and trying to keep things understandable and simple. So I think training is key, both on shore and on the vessels. And we have a lot of procedures in our company. I think many shipping companies have that, and over time maybe we are coming close to the limit for people to absorb the procedures. So I think that's a focus, and has to be a focus on trying to make things as simple as possible, understandable as possible. And I think also communication is important. That we have an ICT consultant based in Manila, and I mentioned that the crew on board our bulk carriers, they are from the Philippines. One advantage with this is that he works when it's nighttime for us, so we have a broader scope within the day and nighttime. But actually I think there is another advantage that for the Filipino crew it's easier to understand when he explains than talking in English over a line that might not be so good to a Norwegian ICT employee.
I totally agree. Empowering the people and looking at where the problems are in both their own mother tongue and own technical language is quite important. Anything to add, Morten?
I think you're spot on, Halvor. Get the entire organization on board, pun intended, working with cybersecurity, and also start with assessing your risk. Which functions are important to you, which suppliers and which resources do you need, and which data do you act on. And when you understand that, then you also start to understand where the risks lie and where you should prioritize your work. Make a plan, see through.
All right. Thank you very much, Halvor. Thank you very much, Morten. And thank you very much to the audience and Carl for hosting this.